everybody, it's Julie. Just going to move a couple things around. Here I am again. Hi everybody. Sorry, just getting organized. Welcome and thanks for spending a little bit of time with us today. I'm just going to take up about 20 minutes of your time. Thank you to all of you for putting this PowerPoint together. Everybody participated, and it's really a collective work of everyone's. And thanks to Diane for all of the amazing tools and supports that you provide to the group. And this is being one of them. So this webinar is designed to just be a support to you, just a practice round, something that you can follow along with and get a little practice before you present to your group. In a couple of minutes, I'm going to turn on my stopwatch, and I'm going to time myself for about 15 minutes. I'm going to walk through the slides, and hopefully that'll give you a little bit of way to practice. But there's no real one way to do it. You're going to modify this and present it in a way that feels really good for you and that feels right for you. So the most important thing that I want to remind everyone is that you know much more about this topic than anyone in the room, and don't feel like anyone's critiquing you or judging you in any way. You are so embedded in this work and know so much more about what's happening. I think that people are going to be amazingly excited to hear about what the collective has been doing. I think they're going to be very impressed at the end, and I think it's going to be fantastic, and I think you're all going to do a great job. They're going to be impressed. So share your passion, share your excitement, share your amazement, and it's all going to be awesome. So I'm going to turn off my webcam now, and then I'm going to start my timer, and then I'm going to walk through the slides. So talk to you later. Good luck. Okay. So I want to make sure that people can see my screen, and I hope that you can see that, and I'm going to start moving forward. Let me start my stopwatch. So this is really the start of the 15th. Hello, everyone. My name is Julie Pehar, and I am a consultant working with the Peel Parenting Collective. I've been with the collective about 3 years. The collective is a really exciting place to be, and I offer the role of facilitation and capacity building and collective impact expertise and a little bit of research and evaluations. I'm really, really happy to be here with everybody, and I hope you enjoy the presentation. You have in front of you an exercise sheet that is for you to jot down things as we go along. Any questions or things that jump out at you and why, anything that you want to come back to, feel free to jot those down, and we will definitely come back to those after we're done. So the Peel Parenting Collective, very briefly, has started with a community conversation several years ago and has been evolving and building ever since. It's very multi-sectoral in Peel, and it's committed to improving the parenting education sector. And after much consideration and much research and conversation and so on, the focus is on contributing to a decrease in parental stress. We're going to talk a lot more about that as I walk through the data. The group has also spent quite a bit of time looking at guiding principles, and they're here in front of you. There are 4 of them. The fact that parents are our partners in action is a very deliberate sort of understanding that parents are the population that we're trying to impact and affect. And so therefore we believe that parents are really at the center of our work and will play a central role in working with us as partners and leaders. Sorry about that. The second guiding principle, that strong community partnerships, is something that we are working on as we speak, sharing our information with our community, gathering the expertise and support of community partnerships, aligning our work with what's already happening out there, and we continue to do a building of community partnerships and will continue. It's ongoing. This commitment to equity inclusion was very important as we look at a population of parents, understanding that there are many different groups of parents that have differing levels of privilege and power and equity really in our community. And so very committed to the principles of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we measure our attempts at this in particular, and we'll use our measurements going forward to help us learn and to help us continue to improve in this area. It's a very deliberate and intentional piece of work for us. And the strong evidence-informed decision-making is something that I think we hear a lot about in the human service sector anyways, as we shift towards a better understanding of evidence and using it to form all of our decisions. I wish I could get rid of that, and I just don't know how. Keep it. Don't show this message again. Maybe that'll do it. Okay, so let's move on to the Peel Parenting Collective's priorities. So the Peel Parenting Collective has 3 priorities. One, that parents are healthy, broad, obviously a broad category. Parents are informed is a broad category, and parents are supported. But where we've landed for now with this research and in our immediate actions going forward are the following 2 things as focuses. That parents and families have positive communication skills, and that we somehow investigate this idea of some central information system, and we don't know what that looks like at this time. So here's just an example of some of our partners. You may see your own logo up there, and thank you for that. Our partnerships in the community will continue to grow. It will be ongoing. If you would like more information about how to become part of us and to work along with us, please don't hesitate to ask me after the presentation, and we'll make sure that you get connected. So let's start with the parenting research that we did, really coming from some literature and the evidence that tells us that families, and we define families as including blended families, foster families, extended families, and chosen families, and that we know families provide the basic necessities for children and youth to survive. We know that families and parents play the most critical role in creating safe and supportive spaces for their children and youth to develop. We've also learned from our research that positive democratic parenting provides the 3 points in front of you. One, that a family life, that parenting provides a family life that includes encouragement, love, respect, and boundaries, that those are all important pieces for a positive family life. Also, that positive democratic parenting leads to long-term outcomes that contribute to reducing the cycles of abuse, poverty, and involvement in crime. And thirdly, that positive democratic parenting increases opportunities for you, children and youth, to become contributing, both socially and economically, members of society. So what did we do? We wanted to find out more information along these lines and how it related to our priority around communication as it relates to decreasing stress. So we commissioned a literature review, and our literature review grew into a lit review plus surveys plus focus groups, and we'll explain that in a moment. And we centered around 2 research questions. And the 2 research questions are the following. What does the literature tell us about best practices or approaches to family communication? And number 2, what does the literature tell us about the best ways to engage and convey information to parents? So the Peel Parenting Collective formed a research group really from about May until September. It was a subcommittee of the Peel Parenting Collective, and it oversaw the work of all of this research and how it grew. And I'll show you how it grew right now. So let's look at the 3 components of the research that we call the research. It has 3 components: a literature review, a survey, and focus groups. So starting with the literature review, we looked at literature that spoke about best practices for family communication theory, and much of that was dated, but we found that much of it is still relevant today. And we looked at where parenting support is and where parenting education is, and the sort of themes in support and education. We looked at and identified key articles and literature that we could find, and scholarly and community articles. So recently in Peel, as you know, there's been a number of community articles that speak to community issues that are relevant in Peel, and we made sure that we included those in our literature review. And from our literature review, we just knew that we needed to consult more deeply in the community. And we used what we found out in the literature review to design and formulate questions for a survey. And we had 144 people in total complete that survey. And within the sort of scope of our group and our budget, we are very, very pleased with the number of parents that we reached and the diversity of parents that we reached. So we did use a convenient sampling method, and there are some limitations to that, which we speak about in the lit review. There were good representation from Brampton, Mississauga, and Caledon relative really to the population. So we were fairly pleased that we were able to get parents from all three regions in Peel. Overwhelmingly, it was moms that we spoke to, but not entirely, and there were some differences in the gendered responses, which was interesting and great. Fewer than half the respondents were born in Canada, so we got an idea about whether our parents were newcomers or immigrants, but did find out that the majority of them had been here 15 years or longer, so may not have been considered newcomers. So that was an impetus for us to move into a little bit more focus in the focus groups. We'll talk about that in a minute. And we realized after we got the data that we needed to start to analyze it. And we had some really great support from both the Children's Aid Society and also the region of Peel, who are our members. And they helped us tremendously, along with many other partners of PPC. And we realized the monster that we had created in all of this data. There was so much data in front of us. So we decided to disaggregate the data across 4 variables. One was a giant summary of all the responses, and that took us many, many weeks to do, but we have that. But we also wanted to see some specific differences. One was geographies. Was there a difference in parents living in Mississauga, Brampton, and Caledon from one another? Importantly, we also wanted to know, looking at the most stressed parents. So we looked at the highest 2 levels out of the 5 levels of stressed and most stressed parents, and tried to see if there were differences in all of the different questions that we asked the parents. And lastly, we looked at the differences in parents' age, and we had some, I did anyways, expected, especially in the technology department, that younger parents might respond differently than older parents. But interestingly, you'll see when we go through the data that actually didn't happen. So it was really interesting. And after we finished the survey, given the demographics of our survey, we realized that we wanted to dig a little deeper into the idea of family stress and communication methods and where parents were getting info, but to emphasize on families that were facing barriers. So we know that parents face lots of barriers, but 3 groups that we pulled out were young parents, newcomer parents, and multicultural families. And of course, there are other groupings that face barriers, but we could only manage 3 at the time. And we had quite a bit of help from our partner agencies to run these focus groups. And what we had were MyAg, Vita Center, and Malton Women's Council were able to help us host and run these focus groups and then relay information back to us. So they were held, in the Peel Parenting Collective partner organizations and staff helped. And we had 22 parents in total. And luckily, we were able to find some parents that had been in Canada 5 years or less, so we got a little bit better understanding of newcomer parents. And there's a little bit of a breakdown in the age range of the parents as well. So what we're going to do now is, you look back at the 3 columns. We've got the lit review, the survey, and the focus group. We're going to give you the high-level findings of each of those areas, and there's so much more. So we invite you we are obviously giving you access to the whole literature review, which contains all of the information. Please feel free to go back and look at it more closely. But for now, we're just going to give you a bit of a higher level overview. So in the literature review key findings, the following things were key findings: that family communication is central, and building on warm and communicative parent-child relationships. I want to change the wording on that, folks. It's a little awkward. We'll do that. Attention needs to be paid to newcomer barriers, to programs, and parenting information, and that connecting with marginalized or hard-to-reach families requires new and innovative approaches. We also found that the internet and technology has introduced new challenges, but also opportunities for families, so both. We also found that the internet and technology may provide ways to support parenting education and information gathering, absolutely, and that many parents are looking online for parenting information, but indicated they're having difficulty finding reliable and credible and local information. So those were very important points for us. And in spite of the rising internet use, most parents still leverage their key relationships, informal relationships, for parenting advice, such as their own family, other parents, their own parents, so grandparents, and health practitioners. We also found there is actually a lack of local information about family communication, in particular, in Peel region. And there's a gap in knowledge about what supports exist and are needed for families in Peel region. So let's move on to what we found out in our survey. In our survey, I remember 144 parents in Peel. Approximately a third of them who were surveyed reported being stressed or very stressed. Those were the top two levels of indication of stress, stressed and very stressed. And a third of parents reported that. Research and results showed that informal networks, so again, the informal friends and family, are the preferred sources of parenting information. But a significant number of parents definitely indicate they search out parenting information online. And online parenting info was one of the most commonly reported sources across all age groups and stress levels. So as I mentioned before, what we might have thought would show some difference actually ended up not. That was great to find out. The top 4 overall choices where parents go to get parenting information were, as it says, friends and family, websites, and then doctor or healthcare provider. Very important information there for us going forward. When parents were asked what their first choice for information, getting information was, their common response was family first and parenting websites second. Most important factors when looking for parenting info were convenience and accessibility, credibility of the source, and personal relevance. So respondents also stated that in-person programs, so I just want to draw your attention to in-person versus online. We have 2 set of categories. So right now this is about in-person programs and supports and services were rated higher than online sources for the stressed or very stressed parent group. And common barriers to parents accessing the in-person support, so again, accessing in-parent supports, were these 4 issues, the kinds of things that we often hear are barriers for parents: what time of day the programs are offered, how convenient they are to get to, even knowing, what's out there, and lack of time and conflicts with work and so on, and of course, child minding while they attend those kinds of programs. But respondents did tell us that local government and community websites are among the most frequently used sources of online parenting information. This was very, very, fabulous information in a region to hear. It was great. But that they had barriers to accessing that, and the top ones were that they needed help to find information. So maybe that has to do with the way it's laid out. But also that it's credible and trustworthy. And that was their biggest reason for being skeptical of online sources, that you don't always know if they're credible. So in terms of focus group key findings, the words that are bolded were the ones that were responded to more, or had more responses. So if you just look through them, are the kinds of things that parents do find stressful and often find stressful. Their children, their work, lack of support, lack of time, and so on. Most of the parents agreed that family communication was important to reducing stress. However, some parents mentioned that in certain cultures, talking about things may not be accepted, and some things that are taboo are not talked about at all. So it's important that we understand, and some also said that discussing these types of things may actually cause more stress. I think that we would all agree that there's some more learning that we can all do in that area. Interestingly, generally, parents also said that if services had a better understanding of newcomer situation, more opportunity for parents to get together and more opportunities for informal discussions, it would be easier for parents to use the available resources. So in conclusion, and again, very high level, I know it's a lot of information to take in at once, but in conclusion, in general, this is what we've come up with. That feedback from the focus group and surveys indicates that many trends seen in the literature do apply to parents in Peel, and that communication was validated as being a very key factor in positive family relationships. Parents also identified many barriers for us to programs that we could look at. Services in Peel can and should pay attention to barriers identified by newcomers in the literature survey and focus groups. We also know the information suggests that specific and targeted outreach strategies could be developed for issues such as cultural expectations of parenting roles, experiences of newcomer youth, and the difficult family tensions that settlement can create. Language programs are offered. I think that should say language programs are offered in multiple languages. Anyway, we'll fix that. And transportation costs maybe supplemented, I guess. I have to look at that slide, guys. There's also some dissatisfaction with the quality of online resources, so that's something we can look at. They may have difficulty navigating the online sources. And as several of our local websites, Region of Peel and the city, were identified as reputable and trustworthy, there's ongoing opportunity for us to help publicize these websites and work with them. And notwithstanding the increased use of online parenting, looking for parenting resources online, most parents continue to rely on informal networks, their own friends, family, parents, and so on. Therefore, formal resource programs and organizations may want to develop strategies that include strengthening and engaging these informal networks, since they're doing a lot of the transferal of information. And we need to promote the availability of programs and information and consistent messaging in those informal networks. So that was the end of the literature review survey and focus groups. And just to make things more interesting and deeper again, we held something in August called a hackathon. And for those of you who don't know what a hackathon is, it's an event where people are invited, diverse professionals, and they come together to focus on not only one collective problem, but more importantly, a solution. And we had many solutions brought forward. We had a vote, and there was a competitive nature to it. And we looked at the same questions. What is the research telling us about parents? And what can we do with the research to enhance a system support or change for the parenting sector in Peel? So we have a tremendous second batch of information from that hackathon that we will be using and integrating into our actions going forward. So what are our actions going forward? In just a very high level nutshell, these three yellow circles identify the three leadership action teams that we're forming currently. One is common and consistent messaging, one is research and capacity building, and one is to look at the sort of online situation. And of course, our stakeholder engagement is always looking at our parents as partners, advisors, and leaders, and again, as other community partners, as our partners, advisors, and leaders, and that work is ongoing. So folks, it's at this point that you may want to add a couple of slides, and we're going to give you an example of how you might want to add some slides that are relevant and meaningful to your particular audience. So these are Elsa's slides. One here is just a demographic slide, obviously looking at Caledon in relation to the overall number of immigrants in Peel. That's relevant to Elsa's conversation. As well, these may or may not be Elsa's slides, but something like this. There might be a slide similar to this. And lastly, and most importantly, Elsa's looking at a slide that talks about the alignment of what you've just explained to everyone in the research and what you're already doing in your organization. So I think this is a really important sort of time for you to think before this presentation that you're doing. What are the kinds of things that will have meaning to the people listening to you in terms of how they align, and what kind of integration can happen between the work that we're doing and the research we have found and the work that's already happening in your organization. So this is really the tie-in right here. So feel free to add a couple of slides here that have meaning to you. And of course, you can ask for comments and questions. And I wanted to remind you that they did have an exercise sheet in front of them. So they may have written some things down. So you may ask them if there's anything that jumps out that they want to talk about. And also, if you wouldn't mind, there's 3 questions, basically like a little evaluation or survey question on that exercise sheet as well, that we'd really like them to fill out and collect, please, and bring those back to us, because we want to know, number 1, if they learned anything. Number 2, if what they learned has got any meaning or relevance to them. So that would be really important. And lastly, before I sign off, just want you to know that the PowerPoint has a bunch of slides following this slide, and I'll just start going through a few of them. These slides are just things that you may want to jump to in case somebody asks you a question. So have a look at those slides and know that they're there for you if you need them. And that's it. So I wish you the best of luck. I'm looking at my time. I've gone way over. I'm at 23 minutes. I think Diane said we had about 20 minutes and then time for questions. So you may want to cut it down a little bit. And best of luck. And I can't wait to hear how all of you have done. And good luck, and we'll talk to you all soon. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.